Good morning, dear students. How are you? I hope you are safe and sound at home. I also hope that you are studying properly at your home. I am Shamima Yasmin Ferdousy, Assistant Teacher, Chattogram Collegiate School. Now, I welcome you to Chattogram Collegiate School online class. Today, I will conduct an English class with students of class 5. Dear students, take your exercise book and pen with you and get ready for the lesson. Let's come to the lesson. Dear student, look at the sentences. You can see two groups of sentences here. On the left, you can see number 1, is it your pen? Number 2, are you Salam? Number 3, was he sleeping? Number 4, do you like mango? Number 5, have you done this? On the right, you can see number 1, who are you? Number 2, how are you? Number 3, what is your name? Number 4, where do you live? Number 5, why have you done this? Dear student, all these sentences are interrogative sentences, or you can say these are questions. We see that some questions are started with auxiliary verbs like am, is, are, was, were, have, has, had, do, does, did, etc. Some start with WH words like who, whom, whose, what, when, where, why, which, how, etc. These words are called WH question words. When we start a question with WH word, we call it WH question. Dear students, today we are going to make WH questions with underlined words. Dear student, now we will make WH question with who. Get ready with your exercise book and pen. Please, you will write whatever you can see on the screen. Dear student, look at the sentences. Number 1, the boys play football in the field. Underlined word, the boys. Number 2, Tamal is making a toy. Underlined word, Tamal. Number 3, he has done the work. Underlined word, he. Dear students, you will have to make WH questions with the underlined words. Here, the boy, Tamal, he, all are subjects and they are persons. That's why we will make WH questions with who. Dear student, now look at the answers. Answer number 1, who play football in the field? Answer number 2, who is making a toy? Number 3, who has done the work? Dear student, I think you have understood it, how you will make WH question with who. Now, let's come with another WH question word. Okay, dear student, we have left something. Now, look at the question structure of WH question with who. First, you will see who plus verb plus object oblique extension plus question mark. Dear student, keep in your mind that you must put question mark after every question. Dear student, now we will make WH question with whom or who. I think you have written all the sentences and their answers by this time. Dear student, now look at these questions. Number 1, I like Belal. Number 2, Kamal helped his friend. Number 3, teacher is teaching Farhan. Dear students, here underlined word Belal. In number 2, underlined word his friend. In number 3, underlined word Farhan. Dear student, Belal, his friend Farhan, all these are person and they are object of the sentences also. That's why we will make WH question with whom or who. Now see the answers. Number 1, whom do you like, or we can say who do you like. Number 2, whom did Kamal help, or we can say who did Kamal help. Number 3, whom is teacher teaching, or we can say who is teacher teaching. So dear student, if the underlined word is a person and if it is object, we will use whom or who to make WH question. Keep it in your mind. Now let us see the question structure. Dear student, whom plus auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus extension if there is any. There may be extension or there may not be, plus question mark. I think you have got this point. So let us proceed now. Dear student, now we will make WH question with whose. I think you are writing whatever you can see on the screen, because when the school will be opened, I will check whether you have done the work at your home or not. Dear student, look at the question. I need his pen. Number 2, this is Fahim's shirt. So, to know who owns something, we make questions with whose. Here, the pen is owned by him and here the shirt is owned by Fahim. So, to make WH question with these underlined words, we are using whose. Look at the answers now. Whose pen do you need? Number 2, whose shirt is this? So, dear student, write it now on your notebook. Dear student, now look at the question structure. Whose plus noun plus auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus extension if there is any plus question mark. So, dear student, I think you have got your point. Now, let us proceed to another WH question word. Dear student, now we will make WH question with when. Dear student, now look at the sentences. I go to school at 7:30 a.m. Number 2, Fahmida is going to Dhaka at night. Number 3, they went to museum yesterday. In number 1, underline word 7:30 a.m. In number 2, at night. Number 3, yesterday. All these are time. Dear student, to know about time, we make WH question with when. So, for time, we will use when. Dear student, now look at the answer. Number 1, when do you go to school? Number 2, when is Fahmida going to Dhaka? Number 3, when did they go to museum? I think you have understood it. Now see the question structure. When plus auxiliary verbs plus subject plus main verb plus extension if there is any plus question mark. I have told you extension may be there or may not be there. Dear student, now let us come to another WH question word. Where? Dear student, look at the sentences. Hassan lives in Dhaka. Underlined word Dhaka. Number 2, the worker is working in a factory. Underlined word in a factory. Number 3, Zidane will go to school in the morning. Underlined word to school. You see, Dhaka is a place, in factory it is also a place, to school, school is also a place. Dear student, to know about a place, we make WH question with where. So, for place, we use where to make a WH question. Keep it in your mind. Dear student, now look at the answers. Number 1, where does Hassan live? Number 2, where is the worker working? Number 3, where will Zidane go in the morning? Dear student, now you will see the question structure. Where plus auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus extension if there is any, then question mark. So, dear student, for place you will use where to make WH question. I think you have got my point and you have understood it. Now, let us come to another WH question word. Dear student, now we will make WH question with why. So, we use why for reason, you know this. Dear student, look at the sentences. We eat food to live. Number 2, Rafiq reads story books to get pleasure. Number 3, he took rest to feel better. In number 1, underlined word to live. In number 2, underlined word to get pleasure. In number 3, underlined word to feel better. Dear students, to know about the reason, we make WH question with why. So, for reason, we use why. Now, look at the answers. Why do you eat food? Number 2, why does Rafiq read storybooks? Number 3, why did he take rest? I think you have understood the questions. Now, let us see the question structure. Why plus auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus object oblique extension. There may be object or there may be extension plus question mark. So, dear students, now let us come to another WH question word. Dear student, now we will make WH question with what? Now look at the sentences. He is a pilot. Number 2, Belal writes the letter. Number 3, the moral lesson of this text is honesty. Number 4, he is selling mango. Number 5, Rakib has presented a book on Jaman's birthday. So, dear student, to ask about direct object, we use what? For direct object, we use what? So, direct object is which is not a person. Okay? Dear student, now look at the answers. Number 1, what is he? Number 2, what does Belal write? Number 3, what is the moral lesson of this text? Number 4, what is he selling? Number 5, what has Rakib presented on Jaman's birthday? Dear student, I think you have got this point, that means making WH question with what. So, for direct object we will use what. So, dear student, now proceed for another words. WH question with which. Dear student, now see the words, I want that book. Fahmida will learn English language. Okay. Dear student, for anything specific or identified we use which. So, for specific thing we will use which. Dear student, now look at the answers. Which book do you want? Number 2, which language will Fahmida learn? Dear student, now look at the structure, which plus noun plus auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus extension if there is any plus question mark. Dear student, let us come to the another WH question word. Now we will make WH question with how. Look at the sentences. She is fine. Underlined word fine. Number 2, I go to school by bus. Underlined word by bus. So, to ask about the way any action or event occurs, we use how. Got my point? To know about the way any action or event occur, we use how. Now, look at the answers, dear student. How is she? Number 2, how do you go to school? I think you have understood this. Dear student, now come for another word. We will make WH question with how many. Dear student, now look at the sentences. Karim will invite 100 persons in his party. Number 2, 50 students read in this school. In number 1, underlined word 100 persons. In number 2, 50 students. Dear student, to ask about number we use how many. So, for number we will use how many, my dear student. Now, look at the answers. Number 1, how many persons will Karim invite in his party? How many students read in this school? So, dear student, I think you have got how will you make WH question with how many. Dear student, now let us come for another word. How much? We will make WH question with how much. Number 1, they need 10 kilogram rice. Number 2, my mother earns taka 60,000 per month. So, to ask about quantity, we will use how much for making WH question. Dear student, now see the answers. Number 1, how much rice do they need? How much money does your mother earn per month? I think you have got my point now. Now, let us proceed for another WH question word. How long? We will make WH question with how long, dear student. Now, look at the sentences. Number 1, I have been living in Dhaka for 10 years. Number 2, it took 2 hours to reach there. In number 1, underline word 10 years. In number 2, 2 hours. So, dear student, to ask about time duration, we will use how long. For time duration, we will use how long. I think you have got my point. Write it in your notebook. Now, I will show you the answers. Number 1, how long have you been living in Dhaka? Number 2, how long did it take to reach there? Dear student, I think you have understood it now. Now, let us come for another word. Okay. Dear student, we are almost at the end of our class. Now, there are some homeworks for you. Please, you will do all your homework at your notebook and you will show it to me when the school will be opened. So, you must do the homework, write it. Number 1, there are 12 months in a year, underlined word 12 months. Number 2, they came to put out the fire, underlined word to put out the fire. Number 3, the day was awful, underlined word awful. Number 4, he grows crops, underlined word crops. People come to Shulakia to celebrate Eid, underlined word Shulakia. Number 6, Sima is from Silat, underlined word from Silat. 7, last January they went to a cup Kempuri, underlined word last January. Number 8, Babul's father had a grocery shop, underlined word grocery shop. Number 9, it was too dark, underlined word too. So, number 10, all the leaves were calling me, underlined word all the leaves. So, dear student, you must do all the homeworks in your notebook. So, dear student, we are almost at the end of the class. So, stay home as it is corona time and stay safe. You must wear a mask when you go out. So, my dear student, take care. Goodbye.